Coach Prime fam, we have some breaking news from the NFL regarding the investigation of the Shadeur Sanders prank call during the NFL draft weekend. So the NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and their defensive coordinator, Jax Ulbrich, $100,000 for failing to prevent the disclosure of confidential information related to the prank phone call to Shadeur Sanders by Ulbrich's 21-year-old son, Jax.
This is Mickey Loomis here, GM of the Saints.
How you doing?
Good, how are you, man?
Good, been waiting on you.
Way to go!
Yeah, we have. It's been a long wait, man.
No, for sure.
We're going to take you with our next pick right here, man.
Yeah, yes, sir. Let's be legendary.
But you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man.
What does that mean? You heard that?
You said you're going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Nobody got that number but coaches, strictly for that reason.
Hey, is this Shadeur? Hey, this is Mickey Loomis here, the GM of the New Orleans Saints. How you doing? This is Mickey Loomis here, GM of the Saints.
How you doing?
Good, how are you, man?
Good, been waiting on you.
Yeah, we have. It's been a long wait, man. We're going to take you with our next pick right here, man.
Let's be legendary.
Hey, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man. Sorry about that.
Then Jax posted this fake coerced apology on Instagram only after the internet dragged him for his cruel action. And this was Shadeur Sanders' response when he was asked about the prank during his Cleveland Browns conference call.
This is what it is. I think of course the dude was childish. Of course I feel like it was a childish act, but everybody do childish things here and there.
And check out what Stephen A. Smith had to say about all this.
Okay. You're right, first of all. Secondly, I have a rhetorical question. Where is the picture of the kid? See, it's not criminal, but it's unethical, it's classless, it's amoral to some degree, and I'd like to see the face of that kid, because sometimes you need to be embarrassed. So your dad is a defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. You go into his laptop computer and find a number for Shadeur Sanders. And you prank call him. First of all, it was cruel and it was classless to Shadeur. It jeopardized your dad. What if the Atlanta Falcons didn't believe it was your dad, that it was just you? What if they had believed it was him? And I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe the defensive coordinator for the Falcons. I don't believe that man did. I don't believe he had anything to do with this. I think it would be unfair to accuse him of that. But what if the Falcons didn't believe him? What if the NFL didn't believe him? Your dad could have lost his job. And because you want to prank somebody, okay, and be cruel and insensitive, knowing what Shadeur must have been going through, you would be some privileged little brat that would do something like that and take joy out of somebody's misery like that at the expense of your father right now. Who was thinking about it? We've talked about a lot of things in football. Have we ever talked about Jax Ulbrich? Have we ever mentioned him on national television? But he's a household name this morning because his son didn't think about his daddy, who unquestionably loves him, took care of him, raised him. You in college now, no doubt still living off daddy, and you would do something like that to him. You should be ashamed of yourself. As for the Falcons, they issued their own statement saying, in part, quote, the Atlanta Falcons do not condone this behavior and send our sincere apologies to Shadeur Sanders and his family, who we have been in contact with to apologize to, as well as facilitate an apology directly from Jax to the Sanders family, end quote. Finally, the Falcons said in their statement that Jax Ulbrich was not aware of the data breach or the prank call until after the fact, end quote. Let me say this. I completely believe Jax Ulbrich. I think grown adults wouldn't do such a thing. There's no evidence to the contrary to say or incriminate him in any way. And I can't imagine how appalled he was. The first thought that came to my mind is, did Jax Ulbrich get his ass whipped? Because that's exactly what he deserved. He deserved an ass whipping. He deserved his father strolling up to whatever school he's in and whipping his ass in front of the students. Now, obviously, he's 21 years of age, so he's a young man. Maybe knocking him upside the head. That would have been better. We can say that Shadeur Sanders will forgive, and it's always good to forgive, because when you don't forgive, you're wearing that on your sleeves. And you're taking up and you're giving that space in your life and in your soul. And why would anybody need to do that? But does Jax Ulbrich deserve it so easily? No, he does not. He should be embarrassed. He should be ashamed. Now, when I was on my day job on First Take on ESPN earlier today, I said that I wasn't going to show, like a photo of him. But I didn't know this social media post was out and everybody had already seen it, because I hadn't seen it. I heard about it, but I didn't see it. So considering the fact that this idiot taped it anyway with himself on camera, hell, what you want me to do? Because what we saw was Shadeur Sanders' reaction. And look at what he said. You looking forward to coming? Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So he called just to make him feel like garbage. And I'm supposed to believe that you're sorry? No, you're sorry because you know that you almost cost your father his job and his career. You're 21 years of age and you would do something like that. You're 21 years of age and you would be that cruel, that classless, that insensitive. That's bad enough. But clearly you gave absolutely positively no thought to your father because you were on camera. It wasn't like it was just a phone call and they got to find a phone call. They could actually see your dumb ass. You actually did that and put your father and his name on Front Street. You almost got him fired. Luckily, he's been associated with the NFL long enough as a player and a coach for people to know his character and his integrity that he wouldn't do something like that. So it was believed, and that way he's able to move forward. But you almost cost your father his career. How stupid can you be? Outside of classless, in other words that I don't feel like calling you right now. There are certain times where people deserve to get their ass kicked, and this was one of them. Now let me get to Shadeur Sanders, because I'm going to reiterate my point about this. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody's missing the picture. I've seen a bunch of people coming at me talking about, well, you know what? He wasn't that good. 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, over 4,100 yards passing. You want to act like the brother couldn't ball? Okay, fine. We all know he could ball. He was projected potentially to be the number one pick. Then when it was clear that Cam Ward was going to be number one, you wondered whether he was going to go at number 3. Before the Raiders acquired Geno Smith, you wondered whether he was going to go to 6. Then the New Orleans Saints definitely was interested at 9 because Derek Carr hurt his shoulder. Pittsburgh Steelers with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson in their quarterback room clearly were interested in him. The Rams, looking for a successor to Matthew Stafford, was interested in him. So you can say what you want, but a worst case scenario has Shadeur Sanders possibly dropping out of the first round, a la Jalen Hurts, or being the last pick of the first round, a la Lamar Jackson. The Giants, when they moved up in the draft to acquire a quarterback, they picked Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. Don't know why. The Browns picked Dylan Gabriel, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist, by the way, and can ball, but at 5'11", considering his arm strength and everything else, he wasn't considered in the same class as Shadeur Sanders. Some dude named Tyler Sook got picked ahead of Shadeur Sanders. Y'all don't have a problem with that? The most important position in the National Football League is the quarterback position. A projected first-round pick falling to the 5th round is not something we have ever seen for somebody who wasn't coming off a devastating injury or had a checkered pass or didn't have a checkered pass off the field. Those are the only kinds of folks that drop that precipitously. Neither applies to Shadeur Sanders. He has no checkered past off the field. On the field, he performed, and he has no injury history, despite being sacked 94 times in the last 2 years. But he went to the 5th round. And why? Primetime Deion Sanders is why. You know, I recently saw a clip of Boomer Esiason, former NFL quarterback, big-time radio host, speaking about it and saying that he was told that on several occasions somebody wanted to grab Sanders, and the owner stepped in and said, no, we don't want him. Because during the whole interview process and what have you, he appeared arrogant and brash, and they didn't like it. Okay, Shadeur Sanders has openly admitted, maybe as he reflects on it, there are some things he could have done differently. Then you have the situation involving his father, the great primetime Deion Sanders, the greatest cornerback in NFL history, one of the greatest athletes this world has ever seen, a 2-time Super Bowl champion, an All-American, one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in the history of man, who can be brash and who can be bold, and was basically talking about how there were some teams that he didn't want his son to go to, and if he didn't want his son there, his son wasn't going to be there. So it is not beyond the realm of comprehension that they stepped in as owners and said, bump this. That's what they did with Colin Kaepernick. Even though this is totally 2 different situations, that's what they did with him. My whole point is, what a damn shame. Because yes, Deion Sanders wasn't perfect or flawless in the things that he said leading up to the NFL draft, and neither was Shadeur Sanders. But why are we acting like Deion Sanders is some pariah that owners can't like and appreciate? They certainly like him. They love him when they see him. They love talking to him. They love listening to him talk about the NFL. He worked at CBS, worked at the NFL Network, could have worked in this industry for years to come, but wanted to be a coach. No checkered past. No negativity, brash, arrogant, sure, but backed it up. And it ended up being something that was beneficial to the league. Still has a great relationship with the league office. Deion Sanders has given far more to football than he has ever taken from the sport on the pro or collegiate level. And for them to use his son to make an example, that wasn't about football. That's about human beings upstairs in high executive places and beyond.
So, Coach Prime fam, what do y'all think about all this? I know what I think. Subscribe for more of the Sanders family.